Wait. All right. I'd like to call the Building and Grounds Committee meeting to order. It's 6:35, and I'd like to ask everybody to stand, say the Pledge of Allegiance, and take a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We did have a need for an executive session for this meeting for personnel reasons. And go ahead, I'd like to take roll call. Jeff.
Mrs. Berger, Mrs. Boyer.
Here.
Mr. Klosby.
Here.
Mr. Galzella.
Here.
Mr. Mummert.
Here.
Mr. Plessick.
Here.
Mrs. Weaver.
Here.
Mrs. Jinxt. Mr. Zimmerman.
Here.
7 present, 2 absent.
And we did hear from Vanessa. She had a meeting at her office. She's going to try to be here as soon as possible thereafter. And Amanda Gingst is attending curriculum night at her son's school.
All right. Item number 4, anyone here would like to address the board about a topic on the agenda? No. Okay. All right. Item number 5, Southwestern High School renovations.
So we'll get back into kind of our routine with renovations. We'll start out with schedule. The general contractor's completed probably 98% of the demolition that's required around the athletic addition. The music addition's probably 80% demoed, getting ready for footers. And provided they get all their approved shop drawings and the orders processed this week, they expect to receive rebar, which is one of the primary reasons they haven't dug footers yet, because they don't want to dig them open, have it rain and fill them in without the rebar to be able to pour them. So provided the rebar comes this week, we should see them start digging footers and start those 2 additions more or less on the front side of the building. The back tech yard area, the tech additions, they're projecting that's probably another 2 to 3 weeks until they start back there. That's pretty much the schedule update for the high school. Moving into the value engineering change orders, the spreadsheet I distributed tonight is what we've been working on. A lot of effort the last few weeks. It starts out at the top with our base bids that were awarded. The next block is our bid alternates that have been selected along with those base bids. Gives us our initial contract agreement dollar amounts. Then as we move into the value engineering recommendation 1, these are the things that between the architects, myself, the contractors, we all have come to basically an agreement that these are reasonable numbers. These are reasonable scope. This is direction that we think it makes sense to narrow the budget gap. So it's broken out per prime contract, the general contractor, the heating contractor, plumbing and electrical contractors. You follow those down. This first round of value engineering that I propose we put in front of the board for approval it's tallying $892,620 on the general contractor. That would be one change order. The heating contractor has another $309,375. We don't have anything for the plumbing contractor to this point, and the electrical contractor at this point in time is $735,731. So that gives us a total value engineering effort of $1,937,726. So whether we go through these individually or whether the board wants to peruse them quick and bounce any questions off of me, but assuming that these items are satisfactory to the board and the dollar amount seem reasonable, I propose that we put this on the next meeting, board meeting, for board approval. They would show up as a change order. The architect would formalize it in a change order format, and it would result in 3 separate change orders that the board would be asking to approve in those total dollar amounts. Just to jump ahead a little bit, just for context, if you flip the page over, that is what I'm calling value engineering 2. They're in red. A lot of those numbers are talked about, whether we disagree on the dollar amount, whether we are trying to better define the actual scope of the project, what's being deleted, what's not being deleted. Some of the items we don't even have a dollar amount for. So there's additional savings we hope to utilize and put toward closing the budget difference. And I'll just draw your attention down. It's numbered 35, the terrazzo repair. That's a big one there. We don't have a dollar amount attached to it, but it's a $1.2 million subcontract. And I'm really hoping that we could make grounds and getting close to cutting that in half. So that could be a real contributor in that one. So that gives us avenues to come up with almost another $1 million of value engineering till it's said and done beyond what's on the front side. So just to kind of give you a picture of where we're at and hopefully where we're headed. Now, the back page, like I said, all that's in negotiations, in discussion, being worked on, but that's the direction we're heading.
I have a couple questions. So in your first set of value, number 1 recommendations down right underneath 34, 30, and then the blank, and then the blank, delete final clean by contractor. Is this something we also did at the middle school?
So yes, we did do that with the middle school. We learned some lessons.
Okay,
Those were brought out quick and early with the contractor. We've talked about it in-house, whether it's something we think we can handle with the manpower requirements. This is a sizable increase from what they gave us for the middle school, double.
okay,
And we think ultimately at the end of the day, regardless of how good the contractor's cleaning company does, it probably won't meet our standard. So we'll be back in those rooms cleaning them anyway.
okay,
So in my mind, the onus is really upon me to ensure that the contractors do a good contractor broom clean, get their debris out, get their packaging, stickers and cover, just all the miscellaneous stuff that seems to accrue. Get a good contractor clean out of it. And then for our crews to actually do the final clean should not be that big of an onus project.
wonderful. And then if you keep going down under 53, you have a couple deletions, auditorium side projector, esports AV, gym video equipment. So they look, majority of them look technological. Really the only things that I would ask is, for me, something's going to flag if it's either for safety or for educational purposes, right? That's the whole goal of this project, is to keep these kids safe and give them more options. So these deletions don't necessarily mean that the kids aren't going to have what they need, obviously, right?
So I can run through them real quick.
That would be
So
wonderful.
delete auditorium one side projector. We initially asked for a projector on each side of the stadium or the auditorium stage. So we have our big primary projector that puts an image on the center screen. A lot of times for the choir or for some type of theatrical performance, rather than dropping the big screen, they prefer to put it on a small side screen, which we've always done with just movable temporary stuff in the past. The request was for one on each side. The dollar amount came in at such a level that we felt, well, you know what? One permanent mount is better than no permanent mounts. Let's approach it from that angle. So
Perfect.
we still have our primary projector. We still have a secondary projector. We just don't have a third projector. We still
Awesome.
got double what we have now. Esports, the electrical engineers really took the esports scope to an elite college level, as far as I'm concerned. It was a huge AV rack. As you can see, $252,000 deduct by dropping this audiovisual component of it. I traveled down to Spring Grove, who has an esports room that seems to be very successful. Our tech department here that's helping support this esports says, if you can give us what Spring Grove has, it's great. I love it. It's wonderful. They don't have any of that stuff. So when they came out and said, well, this is a $250,000 change, I said, I think we need to go that direction. It's stuff that we have a very competent team here in-house, that while we might not have all those capabilities from day one, they feel like, I believe they feel like they have what they need to get started. And as the program builds momentum, I think with the talent that's within this district, we can build that out piece by piece as need arises.
Awesome.
Nick, do we have this we can project so people can follow along? Like, we didn't tell anyone, that savings on the side projector was $12,387.
Correct.
Significant. So, I just want to make sure we're stating how much we're saving in each one of these.
I'll state them as my mistake. I thought I could just Airstream, but I was told that won't go out to the public on a
Okay.
live stream.
Okay.
So I can post this tomorrow on our website,
Okay.
so we can follow back up. But I'll do my best to articulate what we're talking about.
Under
I
the
just-
high school renovations link.
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
we'll add it right on that page.
Very good, very good.
Gym video, we've always used, again, a portable setup system. The price tag came in quite high as we're looking to economize. So what we did was we dropped off the equipment. They had a big motorized two-stage projector screen that dropped down from the ceiling. It was tens of thousands of dollars. They had an elaborate projector system. What we did is we dropped back, just asked for the rough end. The wiring, the power, all the stuff's still there. Again, we have a talented team in the district that I think we can hopefully build that out a little bit, maybe more practical terms, maybe not quite as fancy. Get there. It's really my goal to get there, to have a projection system in the gym that we're not just dragging out on a cart like we currently do. But I really think we can do a lot more economically than $68,000, almost $69,000.
You could put in a jumbotron, don't you?
Seems like you could for those kind of dollars.
Sorry.
No problem. And then the third one of that section, we requested 3 separate Zoom rooms. It really seems like that ability to go into a small group meeting area and be able to Zoom and collaborate, whether it's at a college somewhere else, whether it's with parents or counselors or whomever, really seems like it's the direction of the future. It's something that we don't have full capabilities to do at this point in the district, and we thought it was really a good idea to incorporate that. But when we saw the price tags again, we dropped back. We have 1 fully equipped room in the high school, the way the contract stands. This is dropping the other 2 areas back to rough end. So as we build demand, it's a new thing in the district. So to expect that we're going to max out 3 separate Zoom rooms simultaneously, it's probably a reach. I think it's feasible for us to get the one up and running, and as demand dictates, we can add a second, we can add a third, because we're doing the important part. We're doing the infrastructure, we're getting the wiring in, we're getting the power, we're getting the pieces that are hard to fish through after the fact, but to add the individual components later, still within realm. And
That's
again,
awesome.
that was a almost $39,000 deduct for 2 Zoom rooms.
And then I just had one more on the back. And also, I want to say thank you for being as in-depth in your descriptions as you are, because obviously when you see words like fence versus 3-foot-high decorative fence, that, will definitely put people at ease as to what we're taking out. So I do appreciate that. And then on the back, just because I didn't know we were doing this, but can you explain number 40 to me?
So on number 40, one of the requests was like a porch, a canopy off of one of the art rooms, the ceramics.
Oh, 3D.
One of the processes that she uses is a Roku kiln, which they have to do outside.
oh,
So the current setup is less than desirable. They end up moving hot product, hot kilns, hot artwork to get outside to expose it to the impurities of the atmosphere is how I understand it. So the request was if we had an outside porch area, that kiln could be located out on that porch, and they could just simply open the lid and get the results that they need. But again, due to budget constraints, we're requesting to drop the roof off, keep the concrete slab so the kiln can sit there, but now it's going to be a fair weather endeavor. It's not going to be
okay.
a rainy day endeavor. We still have ports, we still have the rough end, the hookups for that kiln outside. And I guess I really truthfully question if it is a bad day, even if there is a roof, is anybody going to go outside and have a hot kiln sitting there kind of hissing and spitting at you if you get water on it? And So I think while it probably doesn't make the art teacher overly pleased, I think it's a budget pinch that.
But it still
need to
allows
look
it to be outside.
it-
You've given the electricity and all of those types of
You know, all the
things.
hookups outside, it's better than what we have today. It's maybe not everything that was asked for, but it's definitely a step up from where we're at now.
Can I follow up on that? So if we have a kiln outside in that cold weather, excuse me, in that cold weather, like you're suggesting, does it operate in cold weather without cracking and blowing apart and everything else?
So I really rely on the art teachers that use that equipment to know that, but I would believe that they probably do. I think they're very well insulated. You know, it's a slow heat up process, and it's a slow cool down process. I don't think it's a real instantaneous one from my understanding. I would think it's probably fine.
How many operational kilns do we have for them?
Well, the dream for this art room would be a total of 3. So there'd be this Roku kiln and then 2 within the kiln room within the ceramics department.
So the other 2 were working, so they have 2 to work from.
So it's a different style firing process, from my understanding. I'm not the expert on it.
Yeah, me neither. That's my
But there's 2, what we see in my mind is traditional kilns that we see typically in a school art class would be in that kiln room. This Roku kiln, in my mind, is really kind of that unique animal. It's on wheels. It's, from my understanding, the pictures I've seen, it's more of just kind of a low slung, almost a pod almost, but it's big that they can wheel outside. We're going to provide the ports. They can plug it in, fire the works. And then once it reaches the desired temperature, they can open it up. And something about the impurities of being outside and not being trapped in that oxygen depleted kiln, I think creates a different glazing process.
That's cool.
So,
Is what looks
so
like.
just so I understand, so this,
Right,
when you, it's
kiln.
on wheels, it's not gonna be sitting out in the elements all the time?
No, it should not be left out there. It would be
Okay.
wheeled out. And even with the roof, there was no plans that I know of to just to leave it out there.
Okay,
It's
that's,
just that firing process you'll have to watch without a roof that we pick. Okay, here's a 12-hour period that the weather looks favorable. Let's wheel it out, fire it, and do its thing.
I just was worried like snow was gonna get all over and they're gonna have to
Right.
dig it out. and everything.
No,
Or-
no,
or
that's
someone-
not my
Or,
anticipation.
yeah, or someone take it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Some,
But I don't know where
some-
can't
The
picture where
outside, is that one of our interior courtyards? I don't know in relation to the art room.
No,
Is
the newer art layout puts it on an outside wall.
it's on the outside wall. Yeah, so potential to be taken.
Correct.
Okay.
That was all the questions I had. I appreciate it.
Sure.
You have found a lot of money.
I had one, if I could. On the front page, what is OH and P reduction for 24,000?
So I challenged the contractors and, you know, we're substantially lowering your scope of project. Overhead and profit is a percentage of overall project generally. So I challenged them, I said, if we're really trimming this much out, in my mind, the general conditions, the supervision, the markup should also give us
Yes,
a little
as well.
bit back.
Great.
So
Earn your keep.
that was a little bit of an acknowledgement of that. We're lowering
I-
the
I-
work that they have to do.
I want to double what Mandy said. This is great to see this level of cuts. You really put time and effort in. So thank
I
you.
appreciate you acknowledging it. It's
Yeah.
been a lot of work on all parties. I mean, you know, myself, the architects, the contractors have all been party to it. It's, none of this is work that any of those guys want to do, but they have. They acknowledge it, you know, to make this project a good feasible project for us and them, that it was necessary work. And I don't want to minimize the fact that we've asked a lot of them too, to sit to the table and spend a lot of hours with us going through stuff and playing what ifs and kicking stuff around. And sometimes I say, yeah, that seems good. And other times, yeah, that's not worth the squeeze. And then other times like, well, we're getting close. Let's work on it some more. So it's been a process.
Can you relay which contractors were very willing to do that extra time?
Well, I would say, you know, the 3 we see on the spreadsheet tonight were very
Yeah.
accommodating, I think. A lot of them came up with ideas on their own that they didn't even, you know, we gave up the general blanket question, where do you see value engineering that we can do? And I would say all the contractors have offered some ideas. The plumbing doesn't show much at this point. Just plumbing's kind of plumbing. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of frills. There's not a whole lot you can do. We are working on one potential change order at the moment that the plumbing contractor came up with. He offered. I said, research it. I said, that sounds like something we ought to chase to the end and find out. I said, I'm not saying yes or no, but let's chase it out. I have hopes that it could be a for real number there too. But we're still working on that one.
Item number on the front page, item number 9, it says to leave the switchboard MDB in place until phase 2C. So we're taking 25,000 out. Then would that go back in?
No, what they were figuring, the credit represents not having to do a bunch of temporary work. This particular switchboard is a switchboard for the backup generator. So if the original phasing plan that was conceived resulted in moving the generator and all that switchgear that goes with it in phase 1. So the electrical contractors came back and we worked with the general contractors. Is there a way to postpone that room until later in the project so that we can function off the existing generator, the existing switchgear until the new equipment's in place, so they don't have to do a bunch of temporary work. The temporary work is it's just kind of money down the drain. You have to have backup power at a building like this. We can't just do without for a year. So anything that we could do like that, to me, is real cost savings that doesn't impact our product. The end product's still just as good. It's just we wrung out some efficiencies in the construction process that we're not doing redundant work where we're installing a temporary panel, moving everything to that temporary panel, and then coming back a year later and switching everything out again. So that was some of the first things we really worked to find in the process, was stuff like that was built into the phasing, into the construction process, that gave us no net value when the project was done.
Okay, thank you.
I got one other one. No, Jake, go ahead.
On page 158, reduction of the duct insulation and manually insulate. Is that across the board that or in certain specified areas?
So it's pretty much across the board. The rooftop units originally, as the construction spec was built, was a special isolation curb with extra sound insulation. It was all about deadening the sound created by the rooftop unit. As we looked at it, again, it was big numbers. Where's that one at, Jay?
58.
It's middle.
$157,000. Yes, so that was a big one. As we talked with our maintenance department, the guys that really work with these rooftop units, we feel that the new units are much better at being balanced, not creating vibration and noises as the old units do. And we felt that it was an appropriate route to go. We have a lot of units in this building. This particular project here, they are not isolated roof curbs.
Okay.
And I've not heard any complaints about the rooftop unit. So again, it seemed like a place where we could save some real dollars and not negatively affect the project.
Okay, and then 51, the use of the steel set screw connectors and couplings versus a compression type. What's the trade-off with that, if any?
I would propose that the compression type is probably a little bit tighter as far as dust, maybe a little bit stiffer as far as resisting movement. The set screw is just a single set screw from my experience. So it's just pushed in, it's just a single friction fit pinpoint. If somebody was to grab and hang and pull on it, it probably pulls apart a little easier. If you have an area that picks up excessive moisture, dust, not that the compression was necessarily configured to be foolproof, it's probably better. But again, in all reality, the set screw style is used a lot in many places, and it's just a big time savings.
Thank you.
So on the back, 6 is a significant savings, $200,000 for deleting 1/3 of the wall tile. We discussed that kind of at some of them. So is that come top down, bottom up? What's this? How do we reach that?
So that's a number that the architect proposed. They looked at the overall subcontractor's bid at $600,000 and said, wow, if we can reduce our ceramic tile usage by a third, $200,000. It's on the back page because the architects are working on drawings. We've talked about it. I have concerns whether we're going to find, whether I'm going to recommend $200,000 worth of savings by that technique, because I think ceramic tile serves an important function in a buildings like ours. It's high use areas, it's very resistant to use and abuse. It's excellent at kind of repelling graffiti and miscellaneous scribblings on the walls. So I'm not inclined to recommend we cut it so hard that we expose ourselves to all those issues.
Mhm.
The areas that I'm going to be looking at as far as ceramic tile reduction is we have some very high, big new entrance foyers. In my mind, rather than run tile all the way to the top of an 18-foot wall or 16-foot wall, whatever it is, let's look at capping the tile at 6 foot or 8 foot down where the use and abuse happens. Once you get above 6 foot, there's no reason to anticipate a bunch of use and abuse up above that.
So that's what I thought this is. So this isn't just ending it above 6 feet then as it's.
Well, it's on the back page because we haven't been able to get through the details yet.
Okay.
We've been busy on the front side.
Okay, fair enough.
So as we get into it, we'll be able, the architect has one of the assistants working on elevations, trying to come up with actual square footages of viable places to drop ceramic tile. Like I said, they derived that just by saying, oh, it's a $600,000 contract. If we can figure out where to lose a third, that's $200,000. Nobody has actually spent the time as to where that third
Fair
comes
enough.
from.
Gotcha.
And I'm just sharing in Nate's mind, it makes sense to drop it for
Yeah.
anything above 6 feet,
Right.
but that's yet to be proven how big a chunk that really is.
Thanks, Nate.
Again, the one that's going to make us, has the potential to make us a lot of ground is that terrazzo patch repair, $1.2 million contract. And that one, I really do feel like that one has, just generically, again, we got to spend time with prints and drawings and redoing stuff. But that one, I think, really does have the potential of maybe coming up with a 50% reduction in square footage. Now, all square footage isn't exactly equal. Some of it's easy, some of it's hard. But I think there's real room there for significant savings yet.
Nate, when you say the terrazzo patch and repairing, is that the entranceway that you're talking about?
So basically, all of our lobbies and corridors at the high school are terrazzo.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
So it's just really a polished cement-based type product. At least the old days it was.
Just to comment on the ceramic tile, I would think you might want to go to 8 feet. We got some tall kids in the high school and try to deter markings and things on the ceramic tile or a wall above 6 feet.
Mhm.
You might want to consider it an 8 foot as opposed to 6.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely will. Some of it too is we're waiting on his architectural elevation plans to see where it kind of fits in with the overall look of the room too. I'm anticipating we're going to look at certain elevations and say, hey, it makes sense to stop this at the top of the door at 7'4" or.
Yeah.
What,
Okay.
I think there's going to be some other things that play into it where it makes sense where we stop it or not stop it.
How tall are hallways?
The hallways right now are probably 54 inches or something.
Okay.
Maybe 60, but yeah, they're not above 6 foot.
The tile now.
No, the tile's not.
In the hallway itself, though, how far up are we talking? In like the roof?
That should probably be a good 15, 16 feet.
Well,
Up to the, the ceiling. in
drop
hallway.
ceiling.
in the lobby areas, will be that tall. In the actual corridors throughout the building, we'll be fighting to keep a 10-foot
10
ceiling,
feet.
probably 9 to 10 foot. So even right now with the existing building, you walk in, you'll see tile probably no higher than 60 inches, I'm thinking.
Right.
And with the 9 to 10 foot ceiling. So you still have that much of painted plaster wall above exposed.
How much damage have we suffered there to date?
It's not been bad. No,
Okay.
it's not been Stuff happens from time to time, but
Right.
So you're proposing the ones in blue or something that you're gonna, do we need to vote on that, on those?
so if the board's all right, my proposal is that I will share this conversation with the architects. The items in blue seem to be satisfactory to the board, that you should produce the change order for each of those three separate prime contracts. And that change order will be what would be on the agenda for approval by the board then.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any objection to what's on the
Good.
list.
So then, again, for those at home, that's a net change of $1,937,726 of what we've been able to find to this point.
A net-
Hopefully, there's more to come.
a net deduction.
That deduction, correct.
All right.
So the next item, QA Plus Professional Proposal. QA Plus is the organization we used at the middle school. We're looking to use their professional services again at the high school. They do the air testing, the structural testing, certification, soils test. They handle all our independent third-party testing. So it's standard procedure to bring those professional service agreements to the board for approval. Their proposal is $174,999.58. It is the organization we use for the middle school. The architect looks at it, reviews it, makes sure it's appropriate, and if it suits the board, contingent upon our solicitors' perusal of the agreement and not finding any issues, we'll place it on the agenda for board approval.
Is there a proposal, lump sum, or is it based on like service fees?
So it's broken out per type of service. So soils and earthwork is 28,305. Building structures testing is 32,000 and change. IBC special inspection, there's certain inspections that the local code enforcement officer won't do. He wants an independent to do. These guys would fill that gap. That's 26,446,000. HVAC testing, adjusting and balancing, and commissioning, those are actually pulled out on a separate contract. We approved those with Flood and Sterling, so they're handling those. Monitoring reporting is our indoor air quality, so come out, take baseline reference air quality testing, come back on a regular routine basis throughout the construction process, just to monitor and make sure that we're staying in a healthy zone as far as our students and staff. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts running through it quick.
Okay.
Nate, how do these figures compare to what they were for the middle school in terms of an increase? Do you know offhand? Maybe putting you on the spot, I'm sorry.
I don't really, can't answer it real definitively for you. It is more, but then again, our project is substantially more too.
And you were happy
I
with
don't
their
think
work?
it's proportionally, this is a $70 million project and the last one was 35. I don't think, it's not double what the last one was, but it is more.
And you were happy with their work on the middle school project? They
Yeah.
were here when they needed to be and doing the things they needed to do?
Absolutely. As I talked to the contractors, as I observed them and worked with them out here in the field, they seem to be very responsive, easy to get them out when we needed them. And I really looked at them as a kind of a partner in the construction process, another set of eyes to look and to test and to certify that stuff was what we needed it to be.
Wonderful.
They did our HVAC testing here at the middle school, including the pool where we had issues with our HVAC.
So they do, this is the testing and balancing and commissioning. It's kind of after the fact, after it's installed.
Okay.
The issues that we had with the pool, or the issues we had with train, a lot of those things were found because of these tests that were done.
Okay.
A lot of these things, they're up on the roof happening at all hours of the night, all hours of the day. And minor inconsistencies. It's hard to feel it, to know it when you're standing in the occupied space below. It's really these guys going through and actually meticulously going through and commanding the dampers to open, the valve to close, and making sure everything does what it's supposed to do in the proper sequencing.
Right,
is-
that-
is
that's what I was
really-
asking, to see if
really
they
how we
passed it or
find
not.
it.
Yeah.
Correct. The people that, as far as I'm concerned, that fell down on particularly the pool rooftop unit was the organization that came out that did the factory start. In the contract pricing, the manufacturer has authorized reps that are supposed to come out, check your unit, make sure it's ready to run, check all your fluid levels, basically, make sure the wiring's correct, make sure the plumbing's correct, as the factory trained rep, and make sure it's all right before you turn the switch on. Those are the guys I feel really kind of let us down at the middle school project.
But they do that after the testing, so could we take that lesson?
So they do
into-
that first.
They do that
These
first.
guys come out afterwards and test a functioning unit to make sure that it's doing what it's prescribed to do.
Okay.
So again, we'll forward out through Stock and Leader for their review and tighten it up and put it on for approval once Stock and Leader has an opportunity to review it.
Sounds good. All right, number 6 is updates.
So real quick, Rich, before we move on, the other things that we just got dropped in, it's our first pay app submittal. Things just came through, everybody's getting in the groove. So I just wanted to warn the board too, that both the plumbing contractor, Myco, and the general contractor, Lobar, has requested on their payment app 1 for their bonding expenses. So that would be $99,000 for Myco, less the retainage then. And Lobar is actually $568,065 you will see on the agenda for approval for their bonding expense. And then the third item that I would anticipate, I don't think we've seen it yet, is that I know Jeff's been working a lot with Weber Insurance to get our builder's risk finalized. It needs to be issued, which it has been. Along with that, I would anticipate a bill showing up pretty shortly. So,
Pretty big.
so that would be coming along too. So we're getting back into those routine of having some sizable construction bills for approval on the agendas.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So on to 6, scoreboard's up, structure's up. The guys were working last week on getting the conduit finalized. They should be working on getting the electric pulled. It would be our hopes that, till this week, we have the new scoreboard fired up and ready, and do our best to grab a hold of some of the operators and get them trained on the new control panel. So again, a lot of thanks to the local community members that chipped in to help get that base installed, raise funds. We had good participation on that. And as we stand back and look at it, I think it's a nice finished product.
What about the time clock? As far as stopping and starting when it should be, like, that they start the time clock, the play clock,
Mm-hmm.
they'll start that when it's supposed to be started, but then they let it run through the entire play that happened, and they don't stop it and reset it until after it runs out of its 40 seconds.
So at the game 2 weeks ago, it was just kind of beeping randomly. But I was to say, I think that isn't,
He's been during the ban this week.
Really?
Yeah, that was my understanding, that they operate independent of the scoreboard. And I think as I talked with Troy, his thought was that he just hand the remote to the referee for the referee to be able to manage that.
okay.
And when the play's over, he's supposed to reset
He's
it,
supposed to, yeah.
but he or she,
But it
and
gives
then
off
they let it go.
yeah.
There were some plays that didn't, most plays that did. But that's an operator error.
And that's off the existing board, or is that a whole
No,
nother
that's
thing
the
all by
one.
itself?
The new ones that
It's
were
the whole
ordered.
thing by itself,
They're
okay.
new, yeah.
Clocks that are put in place, that were donated.
Yeah, they operate independently.
Okay.
Give the board a warning. If you haven't heard already, the stadium PA system was having issues Friday night. We believe it to be a radio frequency conflict, whether it's some of our wireless headphones, whether it was something the other team brought in, or We're not sure. We have a tech coming out this week to dig into it, try to see specifically what the problem is. But we'll chase that through, try to diagnose what's going on. I'm a little fearful that seems like the FCC rules have changed over the years, and some of the wireless hardware that was acceptable 10 years ago, while we might still be trying to use it in the district, or another school might be trying to use it, it might be in conflict with some of the new stuff and has crossovers. We're really relying on that tech to help sort that out. I guess at the end of the day, I'm bringing it up to the board. It is an age system. Somewhere along the line, when we dive into this, we're going to have to evaluate what's the cost of the fix, what's it take to fix this? Does it make sense to repair what we have, or do we pull the trigger and chase a new system? So that's the conversations we'll be having over the next few weeks.
Want to compliment Tom Jemison's work on making sure that he's on top of that. And as he explained it to me, he said it could be anybody in this general area. It's enough to be able to throw the system off. But he also expressed that the system is from the 90s, and we will be looking at something, a need for it in the future.
But if I noticed on Saturday, there was no issue.
So as I spoke to Tom, he says that's how he narrowed it down. They went through and unplugged all the wireless radio frequency receivers. So they unplugged all those guys,
Okay.
and the problem miraculously went away. So that helps us narrow it down.
Yeah, okay.
So the next issue I had on the other is the visitor bleacher. Just wanted to give the board an update on that. The message has finally changed from in 2 to 3 weeks, Friday afternoon, they said, we have them, we're arranging shipping. Today, they told me it should be in the district on Friday. So much better than the messaging was. Still maddening that we started this project first week of February, we signed the POs. In May, yep, the stuff comes in 4 to 6 weeks, easy, no big deal. Yet here we are in September. So my frustration is quite high, as I'm sure other people's is, but
Can they get them installed within the week?
from talking to them before, they were telling me it's probably a 2-week process. So unfortunately, once we get it in, I guess he gets it unloaded and sees what he has, we'll reevaluate, but we'll go for it. As far as I'm concerned, we'll keep the temporary bleachers where they're at now. And if we get to the point where it looks like we'll have that one done, we'll jerk those out. But there's no sense in moving the temporaries out until we know we have functioning bleachers.
I do, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I do want to say, and the band directors may disagree, I did not ask them, but I think putting the bands on the ends is actually quite nice. Often when they're in the stadium, they're obviously facing forward. So a lot of the music is lost into the grass. And I think it's very nice to be able to see them and hear the music more clearly. Like I said, the band director may hate it and certainly do what he wants, but from someone who was sitting in the stands at the first game, I actually thought it sounded very, very good and everyone in the stadium could hear it. So if that has to happen, please let Mr. Kirsch know it sounds very good.
So I think that is the one small shining attribute of this. I think Mr. Kirsch is relatively happy with sitting on the end zone like that. Seems like it has worked well, and I think it does give good sound. So that's the one small redeeming factor of all this.
Yeah.
But it'll be hopefully a short-lived accommodation.
In addition to that, what you guys have done to make it usable without having that other side should be commended because it's worked out well.
Well, we're crossing our fingers and doing what we can.
We have a contract with them, is that correct?
We have a contract. I went back and reviewed it. There's no time constraint on it. Just never crossed my mind that you're signing a PO on the 1st of February and being told all this stuff's coming, no problem. It was all verbal.
But it can't hurt to ask.
Oh, I
Because they have
absolutely
to
will
not-
ask.
they've
There's
not
there's no
delivered.
doubt about
Yeah.
that.
And I know
I'm
you-
restraining from asking too hard at this point until we get bleachers on site and bleachers up. I don't want to poison anything.
No.
But I will definitely ask. But as I reviewed the fine print, I was looking for something time-wise. And at the end of the day, it's something I overlooked. Like I said, I never thought that would become an issue, that these things wouldn't happen in 6 months from all the conversation we had with these guys. It just just didn't seem like that was a real concern.
Were those documents also reviewed by Stock and Leader?
We just exercised just a standard PO with these guys.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
What company is it again?
Yeah, so it's, I mean, not that it helps us any, but, you know, as we've reached around and looked for alternates and stuff, we're hearing it's quite a few districts are scrambling right now that they were promised bleachers that they thought they'd be a done deal. You know, misery loves company, I guess is all I can say, but sounds like we're not the only one that were stuck in that boat, that they thought they'd have bleachers this summer, and summer stretched into September. So while we're down there doing that, I just wanted to throw I would like to, unless the board has issue with it, go ahead and retop the asphalt between the fence and where these new bleachers go while they're out quick. I've talked to Jeremy, all have a very good price for asphalt as far as I'm concerned. Should be less than $9,000, and we can retop, redo some base repair. It's an area that once bleachers are in, it's very difficult to get back at. It turns into handwork and costs a lot more money. So I'd like to go ahead and get him in before the bleachers go up next week, the end of this week, and get that blacktopped.
If that's approved Wednesday night, he can get in and get it done in a week?
That was his plan. He says the one day deal, or 1 day deal, he
One
should
day.
be able to run in and get it done.
Okay,
We've talked about it. It's, at the end of the day, it's more or less, it's almost a maintenance issue. We've got existing blacktop there that's been patched and repaired. And,
okay,
you know, it's just, it's time. It's a good opportunity to jump in and get it taken care of.
true. Okay.
I know we don't have a football game there this Friday because they are away, but I know the football is not the only sport that utilizes the stadium. Do we have any sports coming in this week that having that done will hurt their ability to play? I mean, I know they're not gonna be on the field, but
Yeah, in my mind, not. I will definitely check with Troy.
Okay.
But it is all outside the fence. Most of the other sports, to keep everybody in the current configuration where everybody sits on one side, really isn't a capacity concern. Everybody seems to fit without too much trouble.
Okay.
So I really don't anticipate that should be any real inconvenience to anybody.
Set time on the asphalt. If we're putting bleachers in, we're not gonna crush up our new asphalt.
Well,
Doesn't it need
they'll have
time
to be
set?
working it from the backside. Yeah, they won't be working on top of the fresh asphalt.
They'll be able to get around it, basically. Okay,
That would be the plan. Yeah.
okay.
So then the one other caveat with the stadium is just to make the board aware, the board members that have been around for a little while probably remember when we went through getting the restroom built for the stadium. The fixture count by the modern plumbing code is quite extravagant. I forget what the number is, like 60 fixtures, 60 toilets, you know, for full capacity of the stadium. It's a conversation I had with the township. I said, hey, you're really kind of holding us back. We'd like to make improvements to the stadium. Our tax base wants us to make improvements to the stadium, but a 60 fixture count's just not a reasonable, feasible thing in the stadium. Let us do something less. We worked that out and got it done a couple years ago, but now through this bleacher upgrade, the new third-party inspector's questioning, why don't we have full bleacher count? How many fixtures do you have? And we're going through all that. At the end of the day, I ended up having to pull our architect from the high school project and say, hey, talk with this guy because I'm not getting anywhere. This is how we've always handled it. It was never an issue with the township before. The township understood, the district understood what our needs were, and we always did our best to anticipate demand. We've never seen a scenario where we need 60 toilets in the stadium to handle capacity. I think there's some traction in the conversation, but just want to let the board know that it's just kind of one more thing.
Okay, so just so we're on the same page. So they're saying that we need way more facilities for bathroom use, but people can come over to the high school and use the facilities over here during the game. Do they count?
They're too far away by code.
Do we still
In
have?
reality, given the option between using a porta pot or walking across the street, I propose 90% of the people will walk across the street,
Mhm.
at least the women. But because of the locality, I don't think they want to count that as additional fixtures.
Do we have porta potties still over there?
We do bring porta pots in for the football season, when we do have a lot more people in the stands.
Mhm.
It always is and has been our practice to bring additional porta pots in. Particularly, I always ask that we put a ADA accessible one on the upper level where our ADA parking is. To me, it's not practical to ask somebody that's handicapped to park up top and have to make the long traverse all the way around the field down to our handicapped toilets. So to me, it's just a no-brainer. We need to put one up there at least. So that has been our standard. And then, with all the conversation, we'll throw one or two extra standard ones in just if we anticipate a high-use event. Right now, we currently have one handicap and one standard porta pot sitting in the stadium just to kind of supplement what we have.
Do we need to get more of them to
Well,
accommodate this?
from practical observation, I don't think we do. To appease an inspector, we may, and that's why I've asked the architect to kind of work with him and see if we can't come to a reasonable number. Maybe it's 6 or 8 additional porta pots, which is still way more than I propose we need,
Right.
but it's certainly better than 50 or 60 toilets.
Okay, thank you.
So that was some of our latest conversations. That takes me to the back, which is empty.
I have a quick question. When I was at the football game, the first football game of the year, I'm not sure what we call it, but the grassy area that's below the ticket booth closest to the building. You call it the grassy knoll? Oh, okay. I was like, oh boy. There's a 3-pipe fence between where the grass ends and the lower walking area. And while I am certain we have told people not to stand on it, not to climb on it, not to lean on it, those things were happening and the pipes were physically moving. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. I don't know the fix, but I know that it crashing to the ground would be dreadful.
Very bad, yes.
I don't know the age, and I don't know if it's that the kids were just acting insane, but also that happens. So I saw it with my own eyes. Someone else mentioned it to me, and they were like, "How old is that?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." So I just wanted to put that on your radar, and it may be fine, and it may just need to be tightened, but it was moving. That was also the game where the visitors student section was positioned in that grassy area. So there were a lot more bodies than is typically there as well. That would have been Dallas Town, right? The first game? No. Dover? Dover, excuse me. Yeah, so their whole student section was up against that gate as well. So just wanted to.
Got it.
So we'll
Go ahead,
definitely
Jay.
investigate that. That's something that, would not be acceptable, of course. Just for record, we do have new railings ordered for the back of the press box because those are old 1980 era, old code railings, again, which don't beat modern codes. We are in the process of getting those built and upgraded, and we'll have to look at that half wall next, I guess.
Go ahead, Jay.
One other safety issue that I noticed that I'd appreciate your attention with is low bars material delivery sign. When the main drag out here, as you turn in towards the high school, they use pins that are standing about 12 inches up out of the ground, holding the 2x4 supporting the back of the board. At the very least, they should be pounded down, or they need a rebar cap on top of those with the kids coming across there. Please.
Yes.
I don't know whether that is across the board with all of their signs or whether it's just that one particular sign.
But yeah, we'll definitely check them.
Okay. Is that all? That's all, Nate?
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, item number 8 is visitors. So I'll throw it out here if anyone wants to. No? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. Meeting adjourned, 7:29.